I'm Randy. I work at Hyde's record store, go to college part-time, manage bands. And if you name a city, I can tell you the time zone.
This is awful in every way. If I could kill it, I would. But I legally can't. But I've considered it. I hate this.
These videos are not for children. If you're a children, then piss off.
Hey there, it's me, your least favorite YouTuber, the Infuso. And today, I'm here to talk about everyone's least favorite addition to one of their favorite TV shows. I am talking, of course, about Randy Pearson, or, as he's known in some circles, Gary Stu. Now, Randy was a character that was devised to be loved, but was doomed to be hated. It's not even that he was that bad in execution, but more so that he was such an awful idea conceptually. First and foremost, late additions to shows are almost always a mistake. It's only on very, very rare occasion that they're actually good and add something to the established lore. Almost always, they're either horrible or completely forgettable. Think about it. 3J in Family Matters, 7 in Married with Children, or look at Community. Do you even remember who the leads were for the last 2 seasons of that show? Right. Neither do I. I'm not saying that they're always bad. I'm saying that they're almost always bad. The ones that aren't are exceptions. Case in point, Supernatural was revitalized with the addition of Castiel, or whatever that crayon's named. Characters added late in development are usually only put in place in a failed attempt at revitalizing a dying brand and extending its lifespan. Instead, they usually kind of have an adverse effect and alienate whatever's left of the show's original audience. I can understand in this particular case why the character in question was created. I wouldn't say that it was the right call, but I can understand how the studio might have thought that this was their best bet. Despite the fact that leading man Topher Grace was set to be leaving the series, that 70s show was renewed for an 8th and final season. Now, losing any one of the leads would be catastrophic, but to lose Eric might have been the biggest blow this series could have ever had. So the series sought to make things right by bringing in the replacement of Charlie. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about Charlie here because that's a subject for another video, but let's just cut it short like Charlie's time on the show and say, things didn't really work out. And despite the show having a passing of the torch moment between the former lead and his supposed successor, Charlie left the series almost as fast as he entered it, lasting a total of 3 episodes before being unceremoniously killed off. So, the first replacement was a bust. But then to make matters even worse, after losing its leading man 2 times over, the star of the show, Ashton Kutcher, also decided that he was going to take his leave, only appearing in the final season of the show in the first couple episodes before exiting the series altogether. The studio knew that they only had Michael Kelso for a very limited amount of time. They also knew that they didn't have Eric or pseudo-Eric. And attempting to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, they created Randy Pearson, a character who would take Eric's place in the story, while also utilizing a lot of the elements of the Kelso character. He had the intelligence of Forman, and the good looks and irresistible charm of Michael. The issue is combining these characters was never going to please anybody. There's nothing original to this character in the series. He's derivative of 2 much better, much more fleshed out, much more beloved characters. And on top of that, the 2 people that they combined to make him have more to contrast than to compare. So the character just feels like a mangled mess. An Eric with Kelso qualities was never gonna work. Eric was the dorky everyman, and Kelso was the goofy womanizer. The 2 are practically night and day. Putting them together just makes Twilight, and nobody likes Twilight. Now, don't get me wrong, Randy wasn't the worst. Okay, I mean, yeah, he was, but his actor wasn't. Josh Myers played the part fine. For someone who up until this point only played small parts and did skits on shows, I think that Josh's transition into series regular was painless. As an actor, Josh looked like he belonged. But as a character, Randy did not. He always came off as someone who was never supposed to fix into plans, but now had to be accommodated to at last minute. He took a lot of time away from the remaining cast, as a big priority in the last season was trying to justify this character's sudden appearance and his place within this group of friends. He never felt like an organic fit for the series, and I don't think the character really ever found his place in it. One of the bigger problems with Randy was that he was never written to be anything other than perfect. And that's not the best way of writing a new character into an established series. Well, unless you truly want them to be hated. If that was the goal, then bullseye. Perfection isn't a likable quality, because it's not something that anybody could realistically relate to. Flaws endear us to characters. Eric's occasional lapses in logic, Donna's own poor judgment, Kelso's stupidity and shenanigans, Jackie's vanity and narcissism, Hyde's bizarre thought process and apathy to everything, Fez's degeneracy and devious behavior, Kitty's alcoholism and overprotectiveness, Red's stern parenting. Blemishes are integral to the blueprint of a well-rounded character. In a lot of ways, their faults are their quirks. They're what makes these characters interesting. With Randy, there were no problems. No interesting stories that could be crafted around him. No dilemmas or obstacles for him to triumph over. No further developments to be made. He's just a default character without depth. He was without flaw. That's not something I'm making up either. Like, I'm not reading into that myself. The show couldn't say enough nice things about Randy. It's constantly supplying him with positive attributes, while never once so much as acknowledging a bad one. They're always showing women hitting on him, or having the cast acknowledge how good-looking he is. Having him cook up all sorts of schemes and plans for them. Or, on occasion, showing off how strong he is.
This new guy, Randy, is awesome.
Hey, who's pretty boy?
I never really saw you with Randy anyway. He's awful handsome.
You are kind of cute.
Oh, now you're gonna show me the muscles? I'm Randy. I've got big muscles. I'm good looking. You were so amazing winning all that stuff. With your hair flowing and your muscles rippling. You were like a Greek god of knocking things over.
I don't know what she sees in Randy. He's so charming and friendly and always willing to lend a helping hand.
But the problem is that none of that matters. Without issues, there's no hook to the character. Because in storytelling, imperfection is perfection. If there's no way for your character to develop, why are you writing about it? But I think what was truly blasphemous to fans of the show is that Randy was basically brought in to replace Eric in entirety. We're not just talking about taking his spot in the show's lineup. We're talking about one character coming in to be a total replacement of another. Someone who is meant to serve the same purpose and play out the same stories. If that wasn't enough to drive that 70s crowd crazy, the show continually would make comparisons between the new lead and the former, in a weird effort to discredit Eric and make Randy look all that much better. Eric's father, Red, even seems to favor Randy over his own son, treating him with a level of respect reserved for the rest of the gang following years of knowing them. He even compares his son to Randy, and he isn't as nice to the former as he is to the latter.
I mean, he's bright, he's good with tools, and most important, he has never once tried to teach me the ways of the Jedi.
Well, you want every game in the place. Donna, must be nice to finally have a boyfriend that can swing that sledgehammer and get that little black thing past seriously hit it.
You know, that Randy, he's a pretty sharp kid. He built this thing in 2 days. The only thing Eric ever made was this crappy birdhouse.
And then, of course, comes the worst offense. The show actually paired Randy and Donna together.
I was a little worried that Randy dating Donna was going to get some, flack for stealing Eric's girlfriend.
Now, since the very first episode of this show, it was made abundantly clear that Eric and Donna are the show's main couple. They were the will they, won't they that we all knew would. But, we watched and enjoyed the ride anyway. They're honestly one of the cutest looking, most real feeling relationships in all of sitcom history. They were like Ross and Rachel, before Ross and Rachel became completely insufferable.
We were on the break!
And now this guy, this Siri stray who just shows up and takes Eric's spot, now takes Eric's girlfriend. There was just a series of bad calls made with this character, in a season of already made bad calls. Unfortunately, though unsurprisingly, Donna and Randy didn't have a whole lot of chemistry, which made this pairing that much more unbearable. Actually, come to think of it, Randy didn't have a whole lot of chemistry with the rest of the cast either, which, in case you were unaware, does not make for a good series substitution. I think all of this might have just been a step too far. A part of me thinks Randy would have gotten hate regardless because he's a flawed character for not having a flaw, as well as being an under-established character in an already very well-established show. But I don't know that he'd be as largely hated as he is today had the show not tried to make him the new and improved Eric. And if anyone's trying to argue this point, Josh Myers was actually originally hired to be Eric Forman. the series was going to go full-on recast. I mean, people were pissed as is, but the outrage pales in comparison to how fans would feel if there was a brand new Eric in Season 8. Season 8 was the all-time worst of that Decade franchise. But given this information, it's clear to me that it could have been so much worse. I mean, they already recast a Forman a season or two before with another Mad TV star, and that didn't work out so well. So you would think that they would know better here. While I don't blame Josh Myers for the way he portrayed the character, I also don't blame the fans of the show for hating this character. He wasn't so horrible in his own right, but he was so bland and boring that he kind of faded into the background. He was an unneeded, unwanted addition to the show, when the show was already at its final stage. I'm not going to say that he killed the show, but he sure didn't help it. Ultimately, Randy was essentially the cousin Oliver of that 70s show, except worse somehow. It feels like the show itself gained sentience and became self-aware of this fact, as it began to phase him out by the end of the season. He goes from being a focal point to being a reference and glorified cameo. In the last episode before the last episode, Randy appears in all of 2 scenes. And then in the finale, he appears in one scene where he has 1 line. And it's not anything of note. I think Randy Pearson has to be seen as the biggest blunder in the history of late addition to series add-ons, if there was someone documenting the history of that. He was completely symbolic of the show's drop in quality and drop in creativity. Overall, as much as I hate Randy and what he represented, I actually wouldn't mind seeing a return of the character. I think there's an opportunity there with that 90s show to do something new with him and maybe give him a good story. Personally, I think it'd be kind of fun if the show was vaguely meta. Maybe they introduce him as being a character who is hated, but it would never be justified because, when you think about Randy, he's not a bad guy, he's just a bad character. He's an honest, earnest individual who is unlikable as a character on a TV show. That's just off the top of my head. That would be something that I would be interested in possibly seeing. Anyway, with all that being said, if you like this video, let me know in the comment section below by leaving a comment saying,
This egg is kind of shaped like Randy's head.
I was your least favorite YouTuber, V Infuso, and I thank you for watching. Hope to see you in the next one.
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was V Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bat time, same bat channel.